What if the Death Star was built during the Clone Wars? Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get right into it. Our story begins on Geonosis. After the first great battle of the Clone Wars, Dooku and the Separatist leaders have escaped the planet, but one of them, Archduke Poggle the Lesser, remained on Geonosis, deep in the catacombs, and something was just tugging at the back of his mind. He had a bad feeling about all of this. He recalled the great battle in the arena. The Jedi were all about to be captured or slaughtered, and the war would have essentially been over before it could even begin. But out of nowhere, the Republic came up with a grand army of armored men, and Dooku barely even reacted. Poggle recalled how Dooku moved through the arena, even through Geonosis, as if it was all some sort of scripted game. He knew this war was about the corruption of the Republic, but Poggle could only wonder now if perhaps the Separatist leader was as corrupt as anyone in the Republic, and he knew he must find out. So within hours, a bounty hunter would be hired to track Dooku's movements. The hunter was a Yin-Kor, a lizard being that was immune to the Force. Dooku would not be able to sense his spying presence, and his name was Rashi Iosivas, and Poggle paid him handsomely to spy on Dooku, with hopes that he was just being paranoid. Around 3 weeks would go by with no meaningful updates, and Poggle began to feel relieved, thinking that perhaps he was wrong about Dooku. He is loyal to the Separatist cause. But not long after, a hologram of the bounty hunter was sent in, with extremely chilling reports. Rashi spent the last few weeks tracking Dooku, and on one wild day, he tracked the Sith Lord deep into the industrial sector of Coruscant. There, Dooku met with a hooded man, and Rashi then tracked the hooded man through underground tunnels of Coruscant, where footsteps ultimately led back up to the Chancellor's suite. Poggle couldn't believe it. Dooku and Chancellor Palpatine were conspiring with each other. This entire war was fabricated by these two men in an effort to gain power for themselves, and so Poggle called Sandhill of the International Banking Clan, along with General Grievous and a few other Separatist leaders, and Poggle laid out this evidence. At this point, Grievous still had his own doubts about Dooku and his own place in all of this, and Sandhill was as corrupt as anyone could possibly be, but he too saw that remaining loyal to Dooku could cost him his life, and maybe more importantly his fortune of money. So in an extremely secret meeting on Geonosis, a new alliance would be formed, as Poggle presented a hologram of the ultimate weapon, the Death Star. He gave Dooku one copy of the battle station plans, but he still had the original plans. This group became the DS-1 Alliance, the group that would monitor the construction of the Death Star, all while playing Dooku and Palpatine's game. In time, they would emerge atop the galaxy, with a battle station that will destroy the Republic. But building it would not be easy. Dooku was an extremely smart man, but there were some important keys that would go into building this. First, non-stop loyalty to Dooku and the Separatist cause while the station is under construction. There can be no moment where Dooku even questions their loyalty. Every battle, every order from Dooku, they must follow it without question. If he senses their disloyalty, everything will be lost. And second, perhaps more importantly, they will need to divert funds to his Death Star project without Dooku finding out. And that is where Sandhill would step in. For decades now, Hill of the Banking Clan has known of a secret vault of credits. It once belonged to Darth Plagueis, aka Hago Damask, and he kept billions in a hidden vault on Munilist. It was never able to be used before he mysteriously died. But Sandhill promised that no one else, not even Palpatine, knows of these credits. They can be poured into the Death Star without Dooku ever knowing. And so, over the next couple of months, the war would rage on throughout the galaxy. Clones fought droids in battle after battle, with thousands dying every single hour. Jedi were leading their men into battles that no one truly understood, and Grievous led droids into burning down planets that refused to submit. The war was brutal, but the corners of the galaxy saw the construction of the most brutal weapon of them all. Using the pretense of funding a new line of droid armies, Poggle, Grievous, and Hill began siphoning off billions of credits from their hidden reserves. Poggle used Geonosian ingenuity to construct droid factories that would produce the advanced component to the Death Star, while concealing the true nature of these operations. Sandhill, with his expertise in finance, laundered the funds through a network of shell companies across the galaxy, ensuring their activities were undetected. The Death Star was soon under heavy construction, mainly on the moon of Sojourn. It was a hidden moon in the Outer Rim territories, a moon where no species lived, and it was perfect for the beginning of the construction. However, the real challenge laid in acquiring the Kyber crystals, the powerful energy source needed to activate the planet-killing weapon. Knowing that the Jedi and the Republic heavily guarded these resources, they turned to the Outer Rim, where whispers of ancient crystal caves persisted. And in a series of secret, risky operations, Grievous would dispatch his most trusted agents and droids to raid small mining colonies and ancient ruins across the galaxy, securing several shipments of kyber crystals under the cover of the night. Each successful raid brought them closer to their goal, but the danger of exposure loomed larger after every raid, as it got the attention of the Jedi. Fortunately, the Jedi were far too caught up in this war and their loyalties to the Senate to see that the caves and the ancient temple invasions were anything more than robberies for money. The Jedi simply didn't have the numbers to keep these places secure. As the construction of the Death Star progressed for months, this main trio ensured that every aspect of their project was very secret. They would enlist the help of skilled Geonosian architects and engineers who were both loyal to and oblivious to the true nature of their labor. Construction droids were built in massive numbers, each one of them built to understand the exact schematics of the Death Star. Massive portions of the Death Star's structure were built in segments, camouflaged as part of an expanded droid factory, as these parts were built on Geonosis, Sojourn, or other hidden moons. And through all of it, their loyalty to Dooku remained extremely perfect. Every time requests for funding came in, Sand Hill would help Dooku. Every time new droids were needed, Poggle was there with construction of a factory. And every time a battle was needed to be fought, Grievous was there to lead it. Time went on, construction would continue. Modifications were made to speed up the process, including abandoning the need to make it habitable for anyone except for droids. Small areas of the station, like the bridge and the weapons area, were designed to be breathable, but the rest of the station was going to be hollow, only built enough to be able to fire. Despite their efforts through the first year and a half, tensions were growing as the Separatists expanded their ambitions. Poggle, forever wary of Dooku's potential interference, moved to consolidate power within the Geonosian leadership, while Sand Hill sought alliances with other factions of the Confederacy, enlisting the aid of Nute Gunray, Wat Tambor, and others for more funding and quicker building of the station, but also more risk and more secrecy. Grievous began to dream of the day when he would unleash their weapon on the Republic and crush the Jedi. They would organize secret meetings in the depths of Geonosian catacombs, where discussions of their ambitions filled the air with excitement and paranoia. An important breakthrough would come when a daring raid uncovered an entire cache of crystals from a hidden Jedi outpost on Lothal. The crystals, long thought to be lost, were a game changer for these Separatists. With the newly acquired power source, the plans for the Death Star took on a frightening new speed. Grievous would oversee the integration of the crystals into the weapon's core, while Poggle orchestrated the final phases of construction and the weapon installation. As the massive structure began to take shape, the Jedi Council became extremely concerned after the Lothal raid. This was not the first of its kind, but it was the largest, and whoever was doing this was getting sloppy in their excitement. Plo Koon and Kit Fisto were investigating the raid, and there were a few tools left behind from the Temple Raiders. The tools had brown dust on them, which Plo would send to the Jedi Temple to be researched, and in the Jedi Temple research rooms, the tools were scanned, and it was determined that they originated from the moon of Sojourn. And so the Council decided to send in an investigative team, along with a negotiations group. And so when Anakin Skywalker was contacted, he was with Padme in her apartment. Anakin was told about the mission, and the Council said it was mainly a precautionary investigation, but this could be important. And so when Anakin was gone, Padme too received a new transmission that was intriguing, yet mysterious. It was a set of coordinates, and the message requested that Padme come to them, as the sender knows of a way to end this war. Padme was already set to fly to Naboo today for Palpatine's yearly State of the Republic address, so she figured there was no harm in first following these coordinates, and Padme soon prepped her ship, taking off. Across the galaxy, as the Death Star neared its completion, the trio knew they were treading dangerous waters. They'd built the weapon that could alter the course of the war, yet the ever-watchful eyes of the Jedi, Dooku and Sidious, remained a constant threat to them. They also knew that their weapon was now operational enough to fly through hyperspace and fire the super weapon, and as luck would have it, Palpatine was scheduled to speak on Naboo, a key planet for Republic resources in this war, and also the perfect place to test this weapon. So Grievous, Poggle, Hill, and millions of droids were soon aboard the Death Star as it was built in space. But when they reached the bridge, one of the consoles in here began to beep, alerting the Separatist group of a ship emerging from hyperspace. On a Republic Venator, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex, and the 501st clones looked on in awe as the ship came out of hyperspace. and in front of them was a massive battle station, functional enough to move and fire. It had been 2 years since the initial battle of Geonosis, and these Republic leaders were seeing the true horrors of the Separatists. No one spoke for a long minute. They were in shock, but when Separatist fighters began flying from outside of the Death Star, Anakin scrambled to get the Republic fighters out there as well. Soon, a space battle would begin, as a fleet of Separatist cruisers emerged from hiding beyond the battle station, as it was getting ready to jump to hyperspace. The Jedi leaders knew this was a losing battle. Their communications were cut off, they were heavily outnumbered, so Anakin and Obi-Wan called all of the surviving fighters back to their ship, and they were going to try to get out of here. As the Republic Venator turned and prepped for a hyperspace jump, a new ship emerged right underneath them. Anakin asked who it was, and he was frozen in fear as one of the clones on the bridge told Anakin that it was a Naboo royal ship with one life form on board. Anakin closed his eyes. He could feel it was Padme. Inside of the Death Star, Poggle and Grievous were satisfied when Padme arrived. They were going to bring her to Naboo and force her to sign a treaty of surrender for the Republic after seeing the planet's destruction, along with the death of the Chancellor. The tractor beam was activated, and within moments, Padme realized she was tricked. Her desire to end this war brought her to the Death Star, and as her ship was being pulled in, Anakin demanded they go save her. But one of the clones at the battle station seemed to be powering up its weapon, so Obi-Wan took over, ordering an immediate jump to hyperspace. The Republic Venator jumped, and Anakin ran at Obi-Wan, telling his former master he may as well have just killed Padme himself. Rex and Ahsoka had to separate the two of them, as Obi-Wan was yelling back that they have no clue what they're up against. They need to contact the Republic, inform them of what they just saw, and Obi-Wan urged Anakin to think. There has to be a reason that Padme showed up in that moment. They weren't going to just kill her. Clearly they need her. Anakin forced himself to calm down, looking into the blue hyperspace stars, considering everything, and then it clicked. He quickly turned and ordered the clones to divert their course to Naboo. Obi-Wan looked at him, and at once, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka all realized that today is the State of the Republic address from Palpatine. The entire Jedi Council, Palpatine himself, and hundreds of key Republic figures are on that planet, along with the billions of citizens. Obi-Wan immediately made contact with Yoda and Windu, who were already on Naboo, settling into place as Palpatine was almost set to speak, and Obi-Wan urged them to evacuate immediately. A battle station, larger than ever built before, is coming to Naboo. And on Naboo, Windu, Yoda, Plo, Fisto, Shaak Ti, and the other council members heard this, but before they could turn to find Palpatine and begin evacuation, the afternoon sunlight seemed to dim to an evening sunset in a sudden instant. Gasps, screams of confusion and terror, and evacuation orders began filling the air. On Naboo, the entire council, Chancellor Palpatine, and even Dooku, hidden away in a far building where he was scheduled to meet with Palpatine later on, all of them looked up to the Death Star. Only Dooku and Palpatine knew what this was. The Separatists went behind their backs and built the Death Star, or at least built enough of it to be operational. On board the battle station, Grievous stood in front of a handcuffed Padme Amidala, and he told her that today would mark a monumental day in the galaxy. Grievous had become extremely power-hungry. He was going to take over the galaxy, and become the leader of the Separatist-governed galaxy. Padme was in shock as she looked on, and as Grievous turned and told his people to fire, Padme felt completely numb, heartbroken as the weapon began to power up. But in space behind the Death Star, the 501st Venator emerged from hyperspace, and immediately, Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and tons of clone pilots flew out of the Republic Venator hangar, determined to destroy the Death Star. The Republic heroes were here. But it was too late. The Death Star powered up, and the green lasers came together to fire a singular blast right into the center of Theed, the Naboo capital city. Windu, Yoda, the rest of the council, Chancellor Palpatine, Dooku, hundreds of clone troopers, and 4.5 billion citizens, including the Gungans and Padme's entire family, died immediately in the explosion. Naboo erupted from the inside out, and the course of the war was changed entirely. The Jedi and the 501st fighters in space were completely stunned by this destruction of Naboo, and the Death Star jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Republic group alone in horror. In the aftermath of the destruction of Naboo, the war would sort of go on hold for a handful of weeks. The Separatists had a legitimate planet-killing machine, and no one knew where it was. They also had Senator Amidala on board as a prisoner, and she was refusing to sign any treaty, as anything she signed would basically destroy the Republic and the Jedi. So many more people would die, and she didn't think the Death Star would ever dare attack Coruscant. It was too vital to maintaining power in the galaxy. So she waited in her cell, heartbroken over what happened to Naboo. The ramifications of it all still hadn't hit her, but more than anything else, Padme knew that Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka were alive. If anyone could stop this station, it was them. And over these few weeks, the Death Star was reloading its weapon, and all the while, Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped in as the leader of the Jedi Order. With Yoda, Windu, and the rest of the Council aside from Kenobi dead, he was next in line to take over. It was a truly monumental task, and Obi-Wan had to quell the fears of thousands of young Jedi who couldn't believe what happened on Naboo. During this time, Anakin and Ahsoka traveled back to the Moon Sojourn, where the Death Star was originally discovered. Anakin had barely slept in these weeks since the Naboo explosion. Padme was still aboard the battle station, wherever it was, and he needed to save her. Ahsoka was doing enough to keep Anakin calm and staying focused, and they did have a plan. On Sojourn, they discovered a handful of older construction droids, and they had Rex and Cody go steal a Separatist shuttle from Megiddo while that battle was underway. Anakin worked to repurpose these discovered droids into serving him and the Republic, and the stolen Separatist shuttle was prepared for their mission. The Jedi and a couple clones were going to utilize a strategy they used to infiltrate the Citadel about a year ago: carbon freezing. That way, the Death Star would not sense their life forms as they land in the hangar, and the plan would have to go into action sooner than expected, as General Grievous had enough of waiting for Coruscant to completely surrender itself. The Senate, led by Mas Amedda, was refusing to bow down to this terroristic group, with many even saying there's no way the battle station has enough firepower for another blast. But Grievous craved destruction of the galaxy at his hands, so he soon decided to just take over, and he sent the Death Star to Coruscant. He would rule the galaxy without this key planet. And above the gleaming great city planet of Coruscant, the Death Star soon emerged, a menacing sphere of metal that blotted out the sun, the surface a patchwork of freshly constructed armor, casting an ominous shadow over the planet. And beings across the galaxy could only watch, shudder, and pray that they might wake up from this awful nightmare. Because they know that what they're watching, live on the HoloNet, is the death of the Republic. Many of these beings break into tears. Many more reach out to comfort their husbands or wives, or trying to tell their children it will be alright. But here's the strange thing about it all. Few of the children need comfort. It is instead the younglings who offer comfort to their elders. As across the Republic, the message from the children is the same. Don't worry, it will be alright. Anakin and Obi-Wan will be there any minute. They say this as though these names can conjure miracles, as from the beginning of the war, the phrase Skywalker and Kenobi, Kenobi and Skywalker, has become a single word. They are everywhere, but the adults take no comfort from their younglings. Palpatine is gone. Grievous is gone. No mere beings would even try to stop this thing. But it is the adults who are wrong, and the children who are right, as in space, a Separatist fleet swarmed around the Death Star, prepared to defend their new weapon at all costs. It began to power up, a deep rumble echoing through space. The Republic's defenses scrambled in response, their ships rallying under Anakin Skywalker's command, who led the charge into the heart of battle. He was flying with the best pilots in the galaxy. He and Ahsoka were also side by side through all of this, and Anakin was holding on to hope, as his most trusted allies had infiltrated the Death Star's scanners while frozen in carbonite. In the depths of the Death Star's hangar, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rex, and Cody remained frozen in carbonite, hidden from the watchful eyes of security droids, as R2 and reprogrammed droids landed their stolen Separatist shuttle. R2 beeped urgently, his circuits sparking with anticipation, as he began the process of thawing them out. The freezing slowly cracked, releasing the trio from their state. As they regained their senses, Obi-Wan donned a spacesuit, and the clones had modified helmets to breathe in here, and they were ready to navigate the Death Star to do what must be done. Outside, the Republic fighters engaged a chaotic dogfight with the Separatist ships, laser fire illuminating the darkness of space. Anakin maneuvered his starfighter with unmatched skill, coordinating strikes against the enemy vessels, while sending out precise commands to his squads. The stakes were absurdly high. If the Death Star fired, the entirety of Coruscant and all of its people would be gone, and Grievous would be free to take over the galaxy. So each Republic pilot fought with fierce determination, knowing their failure would not just be losing this battle, but the entire Republic, the entire galaxy. And Grievous watched from the inside of the Death Star, knowing that at any minute, the Death Star would be ready to fire. The outside resistance was only amusing to him. And inside the Death Star, Obi-Wan navigated through dark corridors, avoiding droid patrols, his heart racing as he recalled the urgency of his mission. He was assigned to find Padme Amidala, who was rumored to be imprisoned within the station's depths. And meanwhile, Rex and Cody moved through maintenance access ways, using their training to silently dispatch any droids. The clang of metal and the whir of the machinery echoed in their ears as they advanced towards the weapons control room, adrenaline pushing them forward. They knew the galaxy was relying on them, and the two of them soon encountered a group of battle droids guarding the weapons room. Without hesitation, they engaged, and the sounds of blaster fire and clashing metal erupted as they fought hard, moving with the precision and speed of true great soldiers. They cut through droid after droid, and Geonosians soon joined the fray, proving to be a strong resistance. With each step forward, their urgency only grew. Rex was hit in the shoulder, but he moved forward, using a droid as a shield, before beating a Geonosian as Cody got to the door, opening it, and they were inside the weapons area. Outside, Anakin knew it was almost his time to act, as he, Ahsoka, and his squad continued to fight against the Death Star's outer defenses, knowing it would be one vital moment that could change everything. A few Separatist ships fell under their fire, but the real threat loomed ahead. The weapon was nearly ready to fire. Inside, Obi-Wan, having slipped through security, reached a heavily fortified cell where Padme was being held. Obi-Wan cut down the droids in front of him, and Padme ran, hugging Obi-Wan, asking if Anakin was alright. And Obi-Wan smiled, saying he is and they must get out of here. He gave Padme a breathing suit, and together they made their way back through the corridors, retracing Obi-Wan's steps toward the hangar. And in the weapons area, Cody locked down the blast doors, ensuring only him and Rex stayed in here. They had full control over the Death Star's weapon. And they powered up the weapon. It was ready to fire, but when activated, the shields around the weapon would become disabled momentarily. So, Cody and Rex activated it, aiming at Coruscant, giving Anakin his chance. They didn't fire the weapon, of course, only activating it, and the blast doors suddenly had 4 lightsabers plunged into them. Grievous was here to stop them. Outside of the battle station, Anakin saw his moment approach. He ordered a concentrated strike, and as the Death Star began to charge its weapon, he knew it was now or never. So Anakin closed his eyes, trusting the Force, and he launched a single torpedo for the center of the Death Star's weapon. The shields had fallen, and Anakin's torpedo found its mark. With an excited yelp, Anakin contacted Rex and Cody to get out of there. He did it! But Anakin received a reply from both of them, saying it's been an honor serving under him, as the comms cut off. Anakin dropped his head in disappointment, but he knew the clone's memories would forever be honored. He contacted Obi-Wan now, but he got no reply, and concern for Kenobi and Padme skyrocketed. But there was no stopping it now. The explosion from the imploding weapon ripped through the Death Star, Rex and Cody exchanging a glance filled with understanding, and they fought to keep the console active, ensuring the weapon's core destabilized completely. The explosion became too much, and the Death Star would completely explode above Coruscant, and Anakin watched anxiously as a single ship escaped the hangar. Obi-Wan and Padme made it. The Death Star erupted, and the Republic was saved. In the wake of this victory, the loss would reverberate through the Senate ranks, and they quickly surrendered. Most of them never wanted the Death Star, but they were afraid to go against Grievous, thinking he would use it against them. And the dust would settle on the war as the galaxy took steps towards rebuilding itself. Obi-Wan would officially become the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, and a new council would begin to be built, with Anakin Skywalker taking on a role, along with Jedi like Baylan Skoll, Kelleran Beck, Ser Junda, Quinlan Vos, and more seats being rotated through. After the loss of Naboo, Padme would become the newly elected Chancellor, promising to restore the Republic to what it once was with the Jedi working with them. It would not be easy, but months of rebuilding would turn into years of peace. The destruction of Naboo would reunite the galaxy, and they would remain safe and secure under the leadership of Chancellor Amidala, Grandmaster Kenobi, and other Jedi like Anakin and Ahsoka for years to come. Monuments were built to honor Naboo. Statues of Rex and Cody were also built by clones, who knew they were heroes in saving the galaxy. Their memories would live on in the newly peaceful galaxy. And folks, that is our story for today. One that I really enjoyed, just putting the Death Star in the Clone Wars. Obviously, a couple challenges with this. You know, it's hard to get the Death Star fully erected within 2 to 3 years, which is what the Clone Wars were. But we decided to bend some logic, and I thought, how about funding? What if Darth Plagueis had a secret fund? So there's billions of dollars. Because he did. I mean, he was extremely rich, so there's that. Yeah, you gotta bend some logic for this to work, but I had fun. I hope you guys had fun. Of course, you know, mirroring Anakin and Luke both destroying the Death Star. Thought that was fun. Give Rex and Cody some spotlight, but also a sacrifice. Gotta do it. Padme escapes with Obi-Wan. Ahsoka's in the story as well. Yeah, killed off the entire Jedi Council. Killed off Palpatine and Duke. Destroyed Naboo. 4.5 billion people. Sorry to them. That's tough. But yeah, so blame Grievous, I guess. Anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.